Haunted houses. Never had the urge to visit one. We got a bunch of them around Louisiana, like the Myrtle Plantation. I never was interested in doing that because I always thought that ghosts might follow me home. But I love the stories about them. We're going to react to one today. This one's by Animated Horror Flicks for his winter special. Make sure to head on over to his channel and subscribe. Hit the notification bell, guys. And if you like reaction videos, make sure to subscribe to my channel as well. Let's get into this animation. The Haunted House. Inspired by true events. It's my favorite events for inspiration.
Whenever we hear of haunted houses, it usually entails a long history of strange and unexplained disturbances.
Right.
But this story is quite different.
Okay.
And inspired by true events.
Tell us about them, buddy.
I won't be mentioning any names or any exact location.
Okay.
But I will tell you that it happened in the mid-90s.
All right.
Somewhere in North Devon, England.
England, okay.
We were a family of 4 and had lived in the house for around 8 years without any paranormal events.
Okay, family of 4.
So it was very surprising to experience this on the very same day we were moving out.
All right.
The truck wasn't quite large enough to fit all of our things, so we ended up squeezing everything else into the car, which meant that there wasn't enough room for all of us to travel together.
Sure.
I was asked to stay behind, while my parents unloaded everything from the car into the new house.
All right.
Which wasn't too far away, so I had no reason to suspect that I would have to wait long. I was left with a single key to the front door that I locked as soon as they left, and my mother instructed me to keep all the windows upstairs closed because the neighbor's cat kept wandering onto the property and getting into the house.
What?
One of the things that surprised me though as I went into my old room was seeing a mirror hanging on the wall that I'd never seen before.
Okay, it just appeared?
As it had been previously hidden from view by the wardrobe that was there.
Oh, I see.
Knowing that the mirror had been there all these years without my knowledge
say a lot
was
of
kind of strange, and it only provided a blurred out reflection due to all the dust.
Right.
It appeared to be firmly secured to the wall, which I guess is why my parents decided to leave it there.
Okay. So it's hard to take off. It was just left
After
behind.
locking all the upstairs windows and making sure there were no uninvited felines inside the house, I waited patiently for the sound of my dad's car pulling up on the driveway. But 3 hours later, I was still waiting.
3 hours?
And it was already getting dark.
Holy cow.
Remember, this was back in the 90s, and cell phones weren't all that common just yet.
Right.
So there was no way of contacting my parents, and I remember feeling extremely bored at the time.
I guess so.
A cell phone would have been a real lifesaver back then, for more reasons than one.
Yeah.
But I would have settled for my old hacky sack or even one of my sister's Tamagotchis to kill the time.
Yeah, something just to...
Unfortunately, most of the light bulbs in the house had been removed, except for the one above the staircase, which
took the
I
light
turned
bulbs
on.
too?
Although I decided to stay in the living room because the temperature upstairs was a lot colder for some reason. About an hour later, it started to rain, and I was feeling hungry.
Right.
I regretted not taking anything to eat with me, although I didn't expect to be waiting this long.
Yeah, you thought you'd be gone
already. So I went into the kitchen to see if there was any food that had been left behind in one of the cabinets.
Some food in here? They took the refrigerator too, I guess, huh? Nothing. Call an order of pizza? Oh.
As I searched the kitchen, I couldn't ignore this thought in the back of my mind of being left out. I hadn't even seen the new house yet, and the fact that my younger sister got to see it before I did kind of bothered me a little.
Oh, left out.
After realizing there wasn't any food in the kitchen, I returned to the window in the living room. As I contemplated several scenarios as to why my dad hadn't arrived yet, I heard something moving around the house.
Okay.
At first, I suspected it was the sound of the trees blowing in the wind outside, until I saw something that sent a cold shiver down my spine.
Oh.
The sight of someone passing in front of the window caused me to huddle into a corner where I waited motionless and completely terrified.
But it was outside, right? Like an intruder.
I then heard tapping on the glass from the kitchen window, but I couldn't bear to look to see who it was, and instead just imagined the same dark figure staring through the window.
Right. Or multiple
After the
dark
tapping
figures?
stopped, it got really quiet, at least for a while.
Scared the hell out of me.
The glass coming from upstairs caught me completely off guard.
God, me too, bro.
I suspected that someone assumed the house was empty and decided to break in for whatever reason.
Oh my gosh.
thought that became even more horrifying as I began hearing footsteps descending the old staircase.
Yeah.
With no curtains or furniture, even the slightest sound would reverberate through the entire house, and there were very few places to hide.
Stuff like that.
So I immediately snuck into another corner, facing away from the hallway to avoid being seen.
Okay. Did he say how old he was right here?
As I anticipated the horror of coming face to face with an intruder, the loud footsteps suddenly came to a stop at the base of the stairs,
Okay.
likely blocking my only exit through the front door. I could hear the wind now probably howling through a broken window upstairs, chilling every room in the house. I was in a state of panic at that point.
I guess so.
Until suddenly, I could hear footsteps again, but
Going
this
back
time
up?
heading up the stairs.
That's some very distinct footsteps
Now,
too,
I was
bro.
faced with a dilemma, because the intruder was probably going to wait until the rain stopped before leaving the house,
Right.
and could decide to head back downstairs at any moment. I wasn't keen on the idea of running outside and down the street in the pouring rain.
You gotta go though, homie.
But I no longer
It's an
felt
intruder.
safe in the house,
Right.
so I cautiously headed towards the front door. As I approached the door, the risk of being seen seemed extremely likely, but I thought if I was fast enough, I would be able to escape and call for help.
Right. That's the
The
door.
desperate knock on the door sent me running back to the
Desperate
dining
knock.
room, as I immediately assumed that the intruder had an accomplice and was waiting to be let in. After anticipating the sound of more footsteps on the stairs,
Bruh.
I heard a voice at the door. I couldn't make out what was being said, but it sounded desperate.
Right.
Then I heard knocking on the living room window, so I slowly peeked around the corner to see if I could get a glance of who it was.
Tell me it's one of your relatives or something.
The poor lighting only provided a silhouette, and I still wasn't sure who was outside, although I did begin to think it was strange that no one had come down the stairs yet.
Right.
I positioned myself for a
Not
clear
your
view of the
parents?
front door, which is when I witnessed the letterbox slowly begin to open.
Somebody's peeking.
That's when I heard my dad's voice calling my name.
It is Dad.
I didn't hear a car pull up on the driveway or see any lights.
Right.
I quickly opened the door and was surprised to see my dad completely soaking wet from the rain.
Wow.
Ironically, he asked me why I took so long to
It was
answer the door,
Him the whole time?
which is when I told him about the intruder upstairs. He seemed strangely convinced that I was making it up.
What?
And despite pleading with him not to go upstairs, he went anyway,
Dad, I was freaking out.
only to discover that no one was there.
Was the window broken though? Was the window broken, Dad?
We both searched the whole house and found nothing. No signs of a break-in. Windows and doors
What?
were all closed and locked, and the carpet was dry.
Dude.
The sound of shattered glass came from the old mirror.
The
that smashed
mirror!
despite never falling from the wall. And there was no plausible explanation for the loud footsteps I heard on the staircase.
Right.
When I asked my dad why he delayed so much to pick me up, he went on to explain that the car got boxed in by the truck at the other house
Oh.
and had to wait until everything was unloaded before he could leave.
Wow.
And to make matters worse, the car broke down just a few blocks away. To this day, I
That
still get a
sucks.
sense that my dad doesn't believe me and
Right.
thinks I was just too ashamed to admit that I smashed the mirror out of
No.
frustration because I was left alone for so long.
Wow.
But I knew what I experienced was real,
Yeah.
and it's something that has stayed with me even after all these years.
Bruh, I guess.
As for the person who passed in front of the window facing the backyard, we later confirmed it was the neighbor looking for his cat.
Okay.
However, the events of that night came up shortly after in a conversation with my dad,
Okay.
and I asked him why he wasn't afraid of going up those stairs after telling him that there was an intruder in the house. What he said next just left me completely speechless and shook me up pretty good.
Okay.
He told me that he wasn't afraid because just as he was approaching the house, he saw me in the window upstairs. He tried to wave to get my attention, but he said I had this strange ghostly expression on my face.
He saw
So
him.
he gave up and knocked on the door instead.
What?
The smashed mirror on the wall, loud footsteps on the staircase, and an apparent doppelganger in the window upstairs were
doppelganger.
enough to keep me away from that house. never to return.
Wow. I mean, y'all moved away from it anyway, so. What a great story, man. Oh, that was so good, man. I love his storytelling so much. It's compelling. It makes you want to keep listening. I was leaning into it most of the time. Always great stuff from Animated Horror Flicks. Guys, make sure to check him out, as well as a couple other videos that are reacted to him from him. Thanks so much for watching. As always, this is Zueljin signing off, and we'll see you next time.